So the newest season of Battlebots has started. Episode 1 is out. I've seen it. Let's discuss it. Before we get into it, I'm going to be reviewing all 7 fights, so if you didn't already know, there's going to be spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode yet, might not want to watch this video. But before we actually talk about the fights, there's a few things that they mentioned in the show that I want to go over. The first being the show actually acknowledging the small field. As I'm sure most of you know at this point, this year the field has been shortened to like 57 or 60 robots, with only 50 being in the actual main competition. They basically shortened the field to have the 50 best robots, and just kind of get rid of all the bloat. Because as in previous seasons, there'd always be a handful of robots that realistically shouldn't really be at Battlebots. And that's no hate to them, that's just how it is. So there's only 50 in the main competition. The show actually acknowledged this. And like I said, when you go on their website, the actual number of robots listed is like closer to 60. But those extra robots are reserve robots that were only there to step in if one of the main robots had to withdraw from the competition or whatever. So it's likely we will not see those reserve robots until some exhibition matches that will likely be on YouTube, or the Golden Bolt tournament if they do that again, or whatever spinoff they decide to do. So another thing that they mentioned that I'm really glad to see is they went back to having 4 qualifying fights instead of just 3. Used to, each robot would have 4 fights to determine if it would be seeded in the top 32 and where. However, the last couple years they've only done 3. And I didn't really like the 3 fight system, because when you had really, really strong robots that would go, they would have 1 convincing win and 2 losses where they still look good. It was kind of like, okay, well, they have a losing record, so do they deserve to make it? And now that it's back to 4 fights, that extra fight really helps a lot of teams out in making their case for why they deserve to be in the top 32. Another thing that is new this season is schedules. You can go on battlebots.com/schedule and view each robot's full 4-fight schedule and what episode those are going to be airing on. Now, I could see why some people might not like this, because they might not want matches being spoiled on who's going to fight who. But I personally like it because it's a little extra touch that makes Battlebots feel more like a regular sport. Because I'm sure, as most of you know, you can look at the schedule of a sports team and see who they're playing and when they're playing and all that good stuff. So I personally like having the little schedule. I'm not really going to go over that too much in this video. I'm probably going to make a separate video going over that schedule. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the fights. Now, I do plan on uploading my predictions videos for each episode prior. I tried to do it for this past episode, but YouTube kept crashing. It was getting late, so I unfortunately had to scrap it. But I will put my predictions right here. As you can see, I only got like 2 fights correct. I did pretty badly. Though, to be fair, this episode kind of proved it doesn't matter how good you are, because you can have a great opponent against a good opponent, and if that good opponent is able to get the right hit on you, that can just really turn the match. So let's get straight into it with match number 1, Witch Doctor versus Ribot. These are both very, very powerful weapons, very, very good robots, both capable of going very far in the tournament. And Ribot went in with their vertical disc configuration instead of the undercutter. Witch Doctor, I don't believe they're using the disc anymore. They're going with just the single disc. And very, very early into the match, Witch Doctor got a hit on Ribot that tore one of its wheels off, that limited its mobility, which is especially bad considering that Mike Galately is one of the best drivers in combat robotics. and Witch Doctor just kind of grinded away at them a little bit, got a few more good hits on them, took off another wheel, killed the weapon, and that was basically it. Very, very convincing win for Witch Doctor. Ribot didn't really get a chance to do anything. But Witch Doctor is looking really powerful, but Ribot could easily bounce back. I wouldn't really take this as counting them out because, I mean, they went up against a two-time runner-up and one of the most dangerous bots in Battlebots. So, our next match was Captain Shredderator versus Quantum. Quantum has not competed in Battlebots since Season 4, and Captain Shredderator is probably the most unpredictable robot in the entire sport. Because you're either going to get a super powerful, devastating full body spinner, or a piece of junk that's just going to die for no reason within the first 30 seconds. This match we didn't get either one. Captain Shredderator went with this dustpan-esque wedge to try and play the ground game, and they tried to spin up. It seemed to be working full order. However, Quantum boxed rushed Captain Shredderator and never really allowed them to get up to full speed. And once Quantum got on top of Captain Shredderator, that was basically it for Captain Shredderator. They were able to bully them around the box, get multiple crushing hits in with their teeth actually piercing through the top armor, pick them up, ram them into the walls, ram them into the screws, get them under the pulverizer. Quantum just controlled this entire match. And toward the end of the match, we saw Captain Shredderator catch on fire and start smoking. It's very possible that Quantum actually pierced into Captain Shredderator's battery at that point, and that's what that fire was. Because after they caught on fire, Captain Shredderator just kind of died. And Quantum won by knockout. A Crusher won by knockout. Quantum has just proved that Crushers can still be competitive. And I believe Quantum is the only true Crusher in the field, because I know Petunia was rejected. And then Kraken is this, like, power hammer or hammer saw type thing now, like Scorpios and Sawblaze. So it's good that we still have some Crusher representation. And it won by freaking knockout. Next up we have Ripperoni versus Gruff. Gruff being one of the most durable robots in the field. It's a lifter robot. Doesn't have the best record. And then Ripperoni being a rookie robot. It's captained by a former team member of Uppercut, which they kind of went in great detail and gave her like this whole little segment about her explaining her robot and everything. And it's kind of like Uppercut, but slightly more engineered. It has a big 70-pound vertical spinner. And one thing they kept hyping up with this robot is the fact that you have this big weapon, and then behind it is a flywheel meant to act as counterbalance. Because as we all know, when you have these massive vertical spinners, when they go to turn, the gyroscopic forces make them tilt up onto one wheel. And as you were saying, by adding this flywheel as a counterbalance, it will counteract that gyro and give it the full control of a robot that has a much smaller weapon. And, yeah, they kept hyping that up, and Ripperoni was one of the most uncontrollable robots I've ever seen. It seems to be able to drive okay with that flywheel, but if you do manage to get it kind of off-centered or, like, hit it and get it tilted up, the gyroscopic forces say, I don't care about your flywheel, we gon' dance. Also, fairly early on into the match, Ripperoni bent one of his wedgelets, and it looked like it was kind of hitting against the weapon blade, which was just making it very unstable. And for the entire match, Ripperoni was just kind of dancing around and just kind of flying around. Yeah, I think trying to counteract the gyroscopic forces just made them angry. However, we did get in this fight one of the best memes I have ever seen in Battlebots. Whee! This match managed to go the full 3 minutes and went to the judges, and for obvious reasons, Gruff won the unanimous decision. Now, I wouldn't exactly count Ripperoni out yet. They do have a very, very tough schedule for a rookie because they have to fight Endgame next. But it definitely seems to be a somewhat durable robot because, I mean, it was spazzing around, ramming itself into the walls, flipping itself over, and it just kept going. It did start breaking down toward the end of the match. Toward the end of the match, one of the wheels looked like it locked up, and it started smoking at the very end of the match. But it does seem to be a fairly durably built robot, and that weapon does seem to have a lot of power. If they can get it dialed in and take care of those paper-thin wedgelets and dial in the gyro nonsense, I could see this robot still pulling together a decent rookie season. The next match we had Shatter versus Huge, and this was arguably one of the best Huge fights we've ever seen. Jonathan's driving was on point for this match. We all know Shatter, big scary hammer robot, one of the best hammers in the game. And Shatter's the type of robot where they can precisely nail a hammer shot and just KO you. However, they never got that opportunity because, like I said, Jonathan's driving for Huge was just on point. You can see a lot of times in the match he would turn Huge and keep the big wheels in front of Shatter, basically using the wheels as a shield against that hammer, because a lot of the hammer shots just kind of knocked against the wheel and didn't do anything to Huge. And Huge didn't really seem to have like one-hit knockout power, but it was just so many like repeated jabs. Every hit was doing damage to Shatter, and they just slowly wore them down until they ended up getting knocked up against the wall and they kind of just died. Their hammer, they couldn't get themselves knocked off, they were incapacitated, and that was the end of the match. Huge won by KO, and this is probably the best Huge has looked since potentially its rookie or sophomore season. Like, this is the best Huge has looked in a while. Now, this next match was a bit of a grudge match. Glitch versus Riptide. If you remember last season, the Rookie of the Year award was given to both Glitch and Riptide. They kind of had to share it because they were both incredibly great rookies. And they didn't really like that, especially Riptide. So this is kind of a grudge match to see who the true Rookie of the Year was. Personally, I believe Glitch had a slightly better weapon, but Riptide was a better overall robot because Glitch had a lot of problems its rookie season, especially with mobility. But because they had they had one of the most devastating weapons, that's how they were able to win so much. And this fight might have been one of the shortest fights in Battlebots. Both bots came out, got their weapons up to full speed, never went weapon to weapon. Riptide got one good hit on them, sent them flying across the battle box, knocked them upside down, and that was basically it. Riptide did go in for another hit to maybe try and flip them back over, keep the fight going, but all that did was just knock Glitch up onto the upper deck, and that was it. That was the fight. It was almost like Glitch versus Huge, where Glitch came out and got like one hit on Huge and knocked him out of the arena, and that was it. So, yeah. Riptide looking more powerful than ever, and Glitch seemed to drive better than it has, but yeah, they need to get some things sorted out. They don't seem to be invertible. I don't know if they have a self-riding mechanism or not. If they did, it did not work, and they cannot drive inverted. So, yeah, might want to look into that, because if all it takes is one big hit to get you knocked over, you're gonna have some issues. Next, we had Gigabyte versus free shipping. Gary Jin and free shipping are no longer a control robot. They've essentially kept the same box that is free shipping, took rid of the little forklift lifter, and just slapped a vertical spinner there, you know, because when in doubt, become a vertical spinner. That's exactly what the sport needs. More vertical spinners. Anyway, and Gigabyte is under some new captains. They didn't drive so well. They actually had a lot of drive issues. Not the robot itself, just new people driving Gigabyte, and Gigabyte being a full body spinner, which is one of the hardest robots to drive. They kind of knocked themselves into the walls a couple times. At one point, they broke their self-rider, and that was basically where the fight ended. We did get to see what a Beyblade would look like in the Battlebots. But, yeah, so their driving issues were made especially bad because Gary Jin is still an amazing driver. It's just now he has an actual weapon. I'm still upset that we have this horrible monstrosity instead of the free shipping we all know and love, but hey, if this is what it takes for Gary Jin to win, then I'll support it because we love Gary. I also like how Gary was convinced that his bot wouldn't be that good because he asked him how his weapon was before the season started. He's like, oh, well, it's not very good. And then it came out it had pretty good power. I will say it definitely benefited Gary Jin with the fact that Gigabyte was kind of out of control. So we'll have to see what happens when he goes up against a robot that does have good driving to see what that can really do. And it also seemed fairly durable because Gigabyte did get some good hits in on free shipping and just kept working like a tank. Free shipping, again, is one of the more durable robots we've seen. So, yeah. Definitely interesting to see what free shipping can do from now on. Not looking so great for Gigabyte. If they can't get their driving under control, the full body spinners will not have a good year. And that leads us to our main event, Tantrum, the defending champions, versus Minotaur, the robot that everyone thought was going to be in the championship last year. Now, they did kept bringing up the loss of Minotaur to Witch Doctor. They didn't really bring up the controversy surrounding it, which I'm really glad of because I didn't really see the controversy surrounding it. You know, when you go through the rule books, it's pretty clear that Witch Doctor won that match. However, YouTuber Mr. Psycho, who used to do a lot of Battlebots videos, he retired from YouTube now, but he made a video going over that episode and really going in detail, bringing up the rule book and everything, and explaining why Witch Doctor rightfully won that fight and why there should be no controversy surrounding it. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to, and frankly, a lot of people that were really upset about it don't really care about the rules anyway. They're going to still think that Minotaur rightfully won that fight. So, anyway, going on to this match, both bots kind of traded some back and forth blows, and at one point Tantrum got flipped upside down, and Minotaur was able to hit the top of them, which damaged their self-rider, and then a few hits later, Tantrum got knocked over again, and were basically unable to self-right. And they got counted out, and that was that. Very, very impressive opening victory for Minotaur. Would definitely not count Tantrum out yet, because, I mean, they're going up against Minotaur. Minotaur's a one-time runner-up and still one of the best robots in Battlebots. So, yeah. That pretty much wraps up my review of this first episode. I will hopefully see you guys at some point next week with my prediction video, and then see you guys later on with my review. This season is looking like it's going to be pretty good. So, yeah. Peace.